Imagine standing on the heaving deck of a wooden ship, the salt spray stinging your cracked lips. You look out at the endless, unforgiving horizon. Days turn into weeks with nothing but blue water and the creaking of timber. Suddenly, a shout pierces the air, a sail on the horizon. Your heart races, not just with the thrill of the hunt, but with the terrifying realization of what comes next. Your life, as you knew it on land, is gone. You haven't just chosen a career at sea. You've signed a blood pact with a short, violent existence. You have become a pirate in the 17th century, an enemy of all nations, condemned to live by the sword until the inevitable day you die by it. This was the reality of the golden age of piracy, and once you raised the black flag, there was no return. To understand the absolute brutality of a pirate's life, we must first strip away the romanticized myths. It wasn't about buried treasure and parrot companions. It was a rebellion against a world that offered you nothing but servitude. Most men didn't choose piracy out of greed, but out of desperation. They were escaping the Royal Navy's press gangs, the crushing poverty of coastal towns, or the tyranny of merchant captains who treated sailors like disposable tools. But this freedom came at a harrowing cost. You were no longer a citizen protected by law. You were hostis humani generis, a common enemy of all mankind. Being a pirate meant waking up every day knowing the entire civilized world wanted you hanging from a noose. The transition into this life began with a ritual of its own, signing the articles. You would scratch your mark on a grease-stained document, swearing loyalty to the crew and the captain. It was a contract of blood and iron. Unlike the hierarchies of the Navy, you had a vote here, a voice in a radical democracy decades ahead of its time. But the daily reality was a grueling test of endurance. You slept on hard decks, packed together like livestock in conditions that were a breeding ground for disease. The food was a nightmare of its own. Hardtack biscuits so infested with weevils you had to tap them on the table to knock the bugs out before eating. The water turned green with algae inside the casks, forcing you to rely on grog just to stay hydrated without dying of dysentery. Scurvy was a constant specter, loosening your teeth and rotting your gums long before a cannonball ever came your way. When the moment of action finally arrived, it wasn't a swashbuckling duel. It was a chaotic industrial accident of violence. The air filled with the deafening roar of cannons and the choking sulfur smoke of black powder. Splinters, not just metal, were the true killers. When a cannonball struck the hull, it sent wooden shrapnel flying through the air like jagged daggers, shredding flesh and bone instantly. If you survived the initial volley, the boarding party began. It was close-quarters butchery with cutlasses and boarding axes, and if you were wounded, there were no sterile hospitals. The ship's surgeon, often just the carpenter, would saw through shattered limbs with a dull blade, cauterizing the stump with boiling tar. No anesthesia, just a leather strap to bite on and a shot of rum. You became a patchwork of scars, wooden legs, and eye patches, not out of style, but out of sheer gruesome necessity. These floating communities of outcasts had their own havens, places like Nassau or Tortuga. These weren't just ports, they were anarchic sanctuaries where the laws of kings held no sway. Here, the plunder was divided, but paradoxically, the wealth never lasted. A pirate might earn in one raid what a sailor earned in a lifetime, yet it would vanish in a week of wild debauchery. Alcohol, gambling, and fleeting pleasures consumed their fortunes as quickly as they were won. They lived fast because they knew they were living on borrowed time. There was no retirement plan for a pirate. You didn't save for old age because old age was a myth. You lived in a perpetual state of now, burning through life with a reckless intensity that terrified the establishment. The end of the line was rarely peaceful. If syphilis or tropical fevers didn't claim you, the law eventually would. As the 17th century waned, the navies of the world grew stronger and less tolerant. The hunt intensified. Being captured meant a spectacle of death. You would be taken to London or Port Royal, marched through jeering crowds, and hanged at execution dock. But the indignity didn't end with death. Your body would be tarred and placed in a gibbet, an iron cage left to swing in the wind at the harbor entrance. a rotting warning to any other soul foolish enough to dream of a life under the black flag. The golden age of piracy was more than just a crime wave. It was a violent reaction to a violent world. History paints them as villains, and indeed their cruelty could be unspeakable. But they were also men pushed to the brink, choosing a short life of dangerous liberty over a long life of crushing servitude. Being a pirate in the 17th century was a test of how far a human being would go to break free from the chains of society. And in the end, the tragedy wasn't just in the ships they sank or the lives they took, but in the reality that for thousands of men, facing the cannon's mouth was preferable to the slow death of obedience. It shows us that sometimes the monster isn't born. He is made by the very civilization that condemns him.